Yo, holy smokes, welcome back to another Pokemon Scarlet Violet VGC video. I'm your host, JoseRockz, and today I have a very fun video for you guys. So recently, Limitless tournament took place for Regulation H, and I actually was able to win it. So this was a very fun, very quick tournament. It was also a best of one Swiss open team sheet and best of three cut open team sheet, right? So it was a really fun tournament that I was able to play in. I was able to win it with the team that I feel is really strong. I'm not going to showcase this team yet because I am going to be using this team a lot for this format. But once I do finish competing, with this team, I will be posting like a runner code and a Pokepaste for it so that you guys can try it out. But for now, I just wanted to let you guys know, show the team off and also show the finals. So when I was recording this tournament, I actually did not record the other matches because I was just using it for practice. But I ended up playing super well and I ended up winning the whole thing, right? So when I did get to the finals, I did record the finals. It was a best of three set. And it was a very, very interesting final. So guys, stay tuned for that because we will be showcasing that at the end of the video. And I will be like commentating it. Since I wanted to focus on winning, I did not commentate over it. Or I did not, I didn't have any commentary for it. But I will go back and watch it and kind of pause it and let you guys know what I was thinking so we can kind of watch it together and let you know what what's going through my mind with some of those plays and things, right? But we're gonna review some of the teams that I played and some of the teams in the tournament that are like super interesting. So we'll go ahead and go through that. If you guys like this type of content, go ahead and leave a like, subscribe, turn on those post notifications, and we're gonna go ahead and get into it. So starting with my team. My team was really fun. It's pretty much a King Gambit Dozo team where you're able to like coach the King Gambit up. The NINTALES is very powerful with ice type coverage. The mouse hold is super powerful as well as a pop bomb set. And this team is something that I hit rank #1 with in the previous Regulation H format. And this is just like the adaptation to it that's adapted to best of three. Open team sheet, and it just functions really strong. So I had a lot of fun with it. If we want to go through some of the teams that I played, the first team that I played, and the Purge, which is pretty much the best of one open team sheet, was the Swiss rounds. The first game I had was against the team that Stefan Mott just won Monterey regionals, the the Mexican regionals that just took place a couple weeks ago. This is the team that he won it with, right? I think it's a 1-for-1 team. I think it's probably just a rental code for it. But this team was actually really strong for my first match. Like I said, it was open team sheet, so it's not like I didn't know the sets, not like he didn't know my sets. And he ended up bringing Scyther plus Alolan, Ninetales, Garganacl, and Incineroar. He dropped the Sneasler because I guess he didn't feel like it was good into my team, or maybe because the Terra Flying on the King Gambit and the Ghost types. So that ended up, I ended up having a really easy time beating this team. He did set up a Roarville turn 1 and fake out with the Incineroar, but I led the Annihilate, and I was just able to final gambit the Incineroar immediately because he didn't have any Ghost types to switch into, and there's no Ghost Terras on his team, right? So when Annihilate sees a team like this, this is pretty much just a guaranteed final gambit into whatever slot I choose. He can't fake it out. He could protect and try to attack, but with the Incineroar not having protect, it was just a pretty clear final gambit into that slot, because what I didn't want to do was final gambit into the Ninetales and it survive with the Focus Sash or it protects, and then he like knock off or Flare Blitz the Annihilate, right? So I just took the Incineroar turn 1, then he brought in the Garganacl, and I still had Dozo on the field. I switched into Tatsugiri and just wave crashed the Garganacl twice. That Mon was gone, and then Scyther and Ninetales just didn't have enough offense to beat what I had in the back, because I did go for Steel Terror, so that I was pretty much Ninetales could do nothing to me. Scyther had to click close combat, which it really didn't want to click close combat like that because its defenses were just getting weaker, and I still had my Alolan Ninetales in the back as well. So this is a fairly easy game. This team, I know it can be strong, but I don't know if Stefan ran into any Dozo teams while he was in Monterey. I didn't see his matches, but I know that Dozo is really good into this team, right? So that was just one thing to note. And I don't know if it was choice band, so maybe it won't be a 1-for-1. I don't know if his Sneasler was choice band. I actually had to look up the team. It might have been, but I'm not sure. But choice band is kind of crazy with coaching and fake out. I think this might have just been a team sheet error and he didn't have choice band. But like I said, he didn't bring it. So maybe that's why he didn't bring it. It's because it was probably been a team sheet error. But yeah, choice band doesn't make too much sense with coaching and Dark Claw. So I just think it's a team sheet error with that said. All right, so getting into the next match that we played against was a Dozo team. So this team was I felt like it was gonna give me a little bit of trouble. He did bring in Dozo, but this Dozo did not have fissure, so I wasn't that too much afraid of it. He led with Gotatail plus Indeedee. I did think that he was gonna just try to go for like explaining force stuff, but with leading with Indeedee, that means he couldn't go for fake out to Dozo. So, and he didn't also I didn't lead Gambit because of fear of the fighting Terra Blast, but I did just final Gambit into the Gotatail. He brought out the Indeedee, just went for Trick Room. He brought out the Dozo, right, but I still had my Dozo. I brought in my King Gambit. He did not go for the fighting Terra Blast, which I thought he might, and I just counter cleaved the Indeedee, knocked it out. And I protected my Dozo while his Dozo yawned into it. Then he brought out the Blood Moon. He didn't bring Blood Moon. He brought the Godingo, right? And the Godingo plus the Dondozo while Trick Room was still up, and I still have my King Gambit, which I switched into Dozo. I just Earthquake. My point from that point was to try to knock out the Godingo. It went for Terra Flying, so it with my my Earthquake, right? And then the Dozo went for Yawn, put my Dozo to sleep. A couple turns went by. Godingo did about 50% to my Dozo. I woke up and I wave crashed it, took it down to very low HP. Trick Room ended. Then the next turn I protected while he protected his Dozo. He protected his Godingo. He went for another Yawn to my Dozo, blocked it with protect. Then the next turn he went for a double protect on the Godingo, and I just knocked it out with another wave crash, right? Then it was just Dondozo against the rest of my Mons, and he just wasn't able to win from that point. But he did have a decent game plan. I do think if he had Fissure on Dozo, it would have helped him a lot better. Or if he had like Haze on Dragonite, but he didn't have it, so he didn't even bother bringing a Dragonite, right? And he just bought a combination of these. I do think that Blood Moon would have been a lot better into my comp because it would have been able to Blood Moon my Dozo, but he didn't end up bringing it. So this was also a pretty fair game for me. The next team we went against was Renny. So Renny is actually, we're not gonna go over his team too much because he's actually the person I played in the finals. But when I played him, I did feel like he had a very good matchup into my team because of the Murkrow. And he did lead with Murkrow and Blood Moon in the first game, and he just kind of was able to leverage his Dozo in the back and win the game from there. But when I did see the player, I did feel like I had a good matchup into this tournament after looking at some of the other players' teams, and I felt like he was probably the best player that was left. That had the best matchup against me, I would consider, right? So I did the whole Wolfie thing that Wolfie does when you have time before like maybe a finals match, even though I didn't know I was going to be in finals. I was prepping for the chance that I play his team again, right? So I was doing the whole total pathing thing, coming up with some lines, and those lines ended up working very well, as you guys will see in the finals. When we get to the finals, we'll kind of take a look at his team before we review the video, though, right? But his team was very strong, and like I said, he didn't bring the Sneasler or the Indeedee. He just brought the Blood Moon and Ursaluna. The Blood Moon was able to do massive amounts of damage, and I got my Dozo out. My Dozo lost to his Dozo, and he kind of won the game from there. And I knew that when I played him again that I couldn't play the same game that I played that way. So we were able to figure it out in the finals. The next team, we went against another Dozo. There was a lot of Dozo in this tournament, though. But this was a Dozo Tatsugiri team. I think my opponent did not play this the best that he could. So with this Dozo, he led with the Palmot. He led with the Grimmsnarl and the Tatsugiri. And what he did was, which kind of surprised me, was that, and also, one thing to know, I didn't want to bring King Gambit to this team. You may think like, okay, King Gambit is really good into the Cyclozar, it's good into the Grimmsnarl, it's good into, decent into Dozo, but you can just terror it to get around like the Flare Blitz and the close combat from Palmont, right? Wrong, because I'm Terra Flying, and the Double Shock was going to be threatening a lot of damage, especially with Electric Terror and Focus Sash, and also Flare Blitz pressures King Gambit to Terror, and then Rock Slide just does massive damage to the King Gambit. So I ended up dropping King Gambit. He went with the Tatsugiri Grimmsnarl lead against my Annihilate plus Dozo, and he actually went for Terra Ghost on the Tatsugiri in order to get to blank a final Gambit, thinking that I might click it into that or the Grimmsnarl, but knowing that both of them had Terra Ghost, I didn't even bother clicking that. I just clicked the coaching plus wave crash into the Grimmsnarl. I did massive amounts of damage to the Grimmsnarl with that. It didn't faint, and he went for a Draco Meteor into the Annihilate, and it hit it, and I switched the Annihilate out into my Dozo, and not into my Tatsugiri, and I went for order up into his Tatsugiri. Then he switched it out to his Dozo, and then my Dozo ended up beating his Dozo. Well, they both had him on the field because Grimmsnarl swapped out, right? And I got the hit first, but the reason my Dozo won was because his was Life Orb, and it was just taking so much chip. And then I also terrored into Steel to incentivize him to stop going for Rock Slides because he was faster than me, and he got a flinch. And also Order Up was not going to be not very effective. And it incentivized him to click and Wave Crash. The whole idea, the reason I did this was to make it so that his Dondozo would be clicking Wave Crash and taking recoil from Wave Crash as well as Life Orb, so that my Dozo won the battle of Attrition. And I was able to knock out his Dozo before mine was knocked out. He knocked himself out actually with a Wave Crash, and then I just knocked out his Tatsugiri, and then it was just the Palmont and the Grimmsnarl on the back, right? He did not click Revival Blessing, which I thought he might with the Palmont, but he went for a Fake Out plus a Thunder Wave, right? I just protected to get around it. Then I knocked out his Grimmsnarl. Palmont was by itself, and it went for a double. It went for a close combat. It's a Dozo, and then I brought Palmont down to Sash, and then it went for another close combat, knocked out my Dozo, but then I still had my Tatsugiri and my Ninetales, which in the back with Focus Sash, and Ninetales outsped his Palmont, and I just blizzarded it before it got a chance to click Revival Blessing. So he kind of greeted with the Palmont trying to knock out my Dozo, which I didn't feel like was necessary. I think the turn that he went for Fake Out Thunder Wave, he could have just went for Revival Blessing and predicted me protecting, right? Because I think that would have been a lot better for him. And Grimmsnarl just was really bad without screens into my team. But that's how that match went. The next person I played against, this was a really good player. He almost beat me in this game, and I also felt like if I played him again that I would have to have some good game plans towards him, because he led the Annihilate in the Hydreigon, and it created a scenario where I had to lead King Gambit because the final Gambit was so threatening that I had to pressure it with Sucker Punch, and I did pressure it with a Sucker Punch, and it did go for final Gambit, but it was weaker because of the Sucker Punch. It didn't do a lot of damage, and the Porygon just went for Trick Room, and he brought in Ursaluna. That's kind of what this team wants to do, but Dozo was just a little bit too strong for him. But I did almost lose this game because of the pivoting that he was able to do with the Incineroar and Porygon constantly being able to heal up. But I did figure that I was going to need a game plan in order to beat this team if I was to play it again in the finals or the semi, or whenever I played them again, because I did feel like this player was good enough to make it. All right, so next we played against Gentle. Gentle, I believe this player, he was very talkative in the chat. He ended up bringing Gholdengo, Primarina, Rillaboom, and the Talonflame. The Talonflame, I led Dozo plus Annihilate, and he immediately went for a Brave Bird into the Annihilate slot to cover for. He led Gholdengo plus Talonflame, which if you think he was just going for he led plus the Rillaboom, right? And he went for a Brave Bird plus a Fake Out into the Dozo, which would basically cover for me final gambiting and me attacking with Dozo. No, sorry. He went for a Brave Bird because I punished his Talonflame turn 1, sorry. So he went for a Brave Bird with Talonflame into my Annihilate, and he went for a Wood Hammer into the Dozo. But I switched Annihilate into Tatsugiri, blanked the Brave Bird, and also with Dozo I Terra Steel, so that Wood Hammer didn't do much damage, and I Wave Crashed the Talonflame to knock it out, right? And I got hit with a Wood Hammer, did about 20%, and then he brought the Primarina in, right? At that point, Primarina, I Wave Crashed it because I'm faster than it, and it went for Haze. It removed my boost, and then Rillaboom was able the next turn to knock me out with high horsepower, but the damage was already done to the Primarina since it's not Citrus Berry, and I brought back in the Annihilate, and I knew he was gonna glide into me predicting a final Gambit, and I just Rage Fist the Primarina. I knocked it out, and then he came back in with the Gholdengo. At that point, he still had his Steel Terror. He went for Steel Terror, and I had King Gambit in the back. So I just Sucker Punch plus Rage Fist into the Gholdengo. I was able to KO it, and then Rillaboom could not beat the King Gambit plus the because I switched out Tatsugiri to King Gambit. on the turn that I knocked out the Primarina with a Rage Fist. And with King Gambit, because I figured he might have Gordingo in the back, but it was just an easy Sucker Punch plus Rage Fist into the Steel Terror that was able to pick up the KO, because at that point he lit the Annihilate twice, so I had 2 stacks on the Rage Fist, and then we were just able to kill the Gordingo, and Rillaboom couldn't beat the combination of a low HP Annihilate plus the low HP Annihilate, King Gambit, and also the Tatsugiri in the back was just too much for the Rillaboom. Oh man, it's a lot of emergency vehicles going by today. Sorry about that. Let me yeah, we just muted that for a quick second. All right, so the next round was actually top cut. So we did make it to top cut. We only had lost 1 match, and that was to Renny. And we got into the top cut with Renny. So not into the top cut with Renny, but we both made top cut, I should say. But again, I went against this team, and he had a much better game plan. He went with the Hydreigon Annihilate mode with Ursaluna and Porygon in the back. He did drop the Incineroar for the Hydreigon. And I guess his idea was that he was going to go for Tailwind and not click Final Gambit this turn. But I made the read game 1 that he was going to do that. And I went for a Rage Fist into his Hydreigon. Because he read me going for a close combat. I went for a Rage Fist and Terra Flying Terra Blast to Annihilate. His Annihilate went for a close combat into my King Gambit instead of clicking Final Gambit. And it just lowered his physical defense, and I one-shot it with Terra Flying Terra Blast, and his Hydreigon terrored into Ghost, right, to get around close combat from my Annihilate. And when he terrored into Ghost, the Rage Fist did about 20-30%, to the point where when he brought in Porygon, I was just able to click he wanted to go for Draco Meteor. All I did was click a Sucker Punch into the Hydreigon, and I one-shot it, and the Porygon's he tried to set up Trick Room, but he went for Ice Beam into my King Gambit. It did about 20-30%, and then he brought in his Ursaluna. So I switched out, because they're both normal types. I switched out my Annihilate into Dozo, and I went for a Terra Flying Terra Blast into the Ursaluna. But it protected, right? But I had a feeling that he might not protect it, but he did go for the safe protect. And he Ice Beam my King Gambit again. It was able to pick up the KO. And I showed Ninetales, which I had in the back, and then I immediately swapped it out. I mean, not Ninetales. I showed Annihilate again, which was I switched out into Dozo, just to not bring out Tatsugiri immediately. Even though I always, planned on switching Annihilate into Tatsugiri, I just wanted to show Annihilate again, just to make him consider the option if I just protected Dozo and attack with my Annihilate, right, with a close combat, which was threatening both of his mons at that point, right? So he had to respect the Annihilate. I switched into Tatsugiri. He still went into Facade plus Terra Blast into the Dozo, and I went for a Wave Crash to the Ursaluna. I one-shot the Ursaluna, and the Porygon just wasn't able to beat Tatsugiri, Dozo, and Annihilate from that point. Game 2, I also beat him. He led Annihilate Hydreigon again. This time he did not Terra Hydreigon, but I made the read that he wouldn't Terra. Since this game 2, I was already up a game. I felt like I could make a hard read, so I went for Sucker Punch again, like I did the initial game when we first played, right? He went for Final Gambit again. He clicked it into the King Gambit, but since I went for the Sucker Punch, it didn't do much damage, and he did not Terra Hydreigon, so I got a free close combat into it, and I one-shot it, and I still had both my mons, and he had lost both his mons, right? No, he still had, because he lost his mon due to the Final Gambit. So then he brought in his Porygon and Ursaluna. At this point, Trick Room was not up, and I had click close combat, right? So he did Terror the Ursaluna into Ghost, but I just close combated the Porygon and also went for a Kowtow Cleave into it. And it did like 90%-ish total. The Porygon survived, they got up Trick Room, but the damage was already done. The Ursaluna did knock out the King Gambit, but I just brought in Dozo, and I just kept clicking Order Up into the Porygon and not allowing it a chance to attack. And then once Trick Room was over, I just Wave Crashed the Porygon to one-shot it, and then Dozo beat the Ursaluna with Tatsugiri in the back, and I still had my Annihilate as well. So that's how we won game 2. We 2-0'd him to get into the finals, which was very interesting. I mean, to the semifinals. So in the semifinals, I went up against this crazy team. Now, you guys may think that this team is like maybe it's gimmicky, but this team was actually perfect for this tournament. So the way that this team works is that you want to disguise the Hisuian Zoroark as, from what I'm guessing, he wants to disguise it as the Malamar for the most part, and leading Incineroar makes you think that he's gonna like click fake out Trick Room, right? But what he did to me was I led King Gambit plus Annihilate. No, I led King Gambit plus Annihilate, right? Yes, it was King Gambit plus Annihilate to the Incineroar, and what I thought was Malamar, but it was actually Hisuian Zoroark in disguise, right? And turn one, he went for Terra Stellar, Terra Blast. It's a King Gambit. It did about maybe 30%, and then I final gambited into the Malamar, which I thought was Malamar, and I almost thought it was a team sheet error because when the Hisuian Zoroark terrored, it terrored into Stellar, and I'm like, wait, Malamar's Terra Fire, but then I realized that it was actually the Hisuian Zoroark, right? So this team can mess with you, right? But he pretty much Terra Blast and Flare Blitz into my King Gambit, and I did not click Sucker Punch because I thought that it was Malamar, right? So I didn't think there was a need to click Sucker Punch in that position because you're up against two dark types, right, essentially. So I just clicked Kowtow Cleave into the Malamar plus final Gambit because I didn't really know the Malamar's HP stat, but I just wanted to cover for it. And he pretty much went for Terra Blast, Flare Blitz, and then one-shot my King Gambit, and I whiffed the final Gambit into the Malamar because it was Zoroark. And then the next turn, I brought out my Dozo, and yeah, I brought out Dozo, and I switched the I brought out Dozo, and I final Gambit into the Incineroar. I knocked out the Incineroar, and then he went for Icy Wind with the Hisuian Zoroark, which dropped my Dozo speed, right? And I went for Protect, but it did not. It blocked it with the. I blocked the Icy Wind. Sorry, I'm trying to remember because it's actually a couple days ago. So I blocked the Icy Wind with the Protect on Dozo. I finally gave it into the Incineroar, and then he brought out Malamar, right? And then, so I'm thinking that the Malamar is very low speed, and he didn't even have to reveal his fourth to me this game, right? Because he obliterated me with this strategy, right? He went for Icy Wind, which dropped my Dozo speed, and the Malamar was like max speed, probably Jolly, I would guess. And it went for Topsy Turvy. And once he did that to my Dozo, while it was already, Tested Gear was already inside, it immediately ended the game, because what Topsy Turvy does is all your stat boosts that you have, it actually reverses them and gives you stat drops. So instead of my Dozo being like +2 defense and special defense, it was actually -2 defense and special defense. And after that, like, the Hisuian Zoroark just kept clicking Bitter Malice, to drop my attack lower, and the Malamar just clicked Super Power, and they was able to just run through me with that, right? So that was game one. Game one was super interesting, and I felt like this team, it was very strong, and I could see how he was able to. Oh, sorry, it's another emergency vehicle. Sorry about that, guys. I don't stay too far from a hospital, so we hear that all the time. But so game two. So what I want to say with this team is, I see this team is, while it is kind of gimmicky, this team is perfect for this tournament. And I see why he was able to make the semifinals, because this team was best of one open team sheet. Now, while it is open team sheet, you don't really know the EVs or what this team can actually do. And Hisuian Zoroark kind of makes his team be able to disguise itself as a best of one closed team sheet team, while you're in best of three. While you're in best of one open team sheet, right? Because you don't really know which one is actually Zoroark or what his strategy is trying to go for is. But essentially, what you want to do with Hisuian Zoroark is like slow things down and allow like Malamar to like get a lot of boost up, or also slow things down with Icy Wind, Fake Tears into like Boom Burst and Overdrive with Toxicity, or get your Tailwind up with the Noivern and then just Boom Burst or Overdrive and just deal massive amounts of damage. The Incineroar is here for a defensive backbone, but it is an offensive Incineroar because it was able to pick up a KO on my King Gambit, which is physically defensive, from about 70%, right? Because the Stellar Terra Blast only did about 30% due to the Assault Vest. And I don't really know what the Ursaluna is supposed to do here, because he didn't bring it in our set. It's not Earthquake, but I would guess that like turn one you can just go for Headlong Rush. and Terra Poison like Gunk Shot into like things that like fairies and stuff or grass types that usually resist Ursaluna, and kind of pick up surprise KOs when they expect you to play, like have a passive turn, right? But in open team sheet, I don't know how good the Ursaluna is, but you could tell this team was built for best in one. But I see how I was able to do so good in this tournament, and it was actually a really good player that was actually playing it, right? So game 2, I was not gonna let the Hisuian Zoroark ruin me again. He did lead the Incineroar plus the Malamar again this game, and what I did with the King Gambit was I just pressured Sucker Punch into the Hisuian Zoroark plus, and I let Ninetales, right? So what Sucker Punch does is it makes it so Hisuian Zoroark can't click anything but Fake Tears, and he didn't want to Fake Tears to Ninetales because it's already Focus Sash, and he led the Toxtricity with the Hisuian Zoroark. So his idea was that he was gonna go like Icy Wind plus Overdrive, but he couldn't safely do that with the King Gambit on the field. So I clicked Sucker Punch into the Hisuian Zoroark, and I clicked Blizzard with Ninetales, and he clicked Fake Tears into my Gambit and Overdrive, right? It did a lot of damage, but we survived because we were Assault Vest, and I pressured Sucker Punch again into the Hisuian Zoroark, but I guess he figured that I thought he would go for Fake Tears again, and he actually attacked. But since we had already Blizzard with the Ninetales, because he went for Icy Wind, we just was able to knock out the Hisuian Zoroark. At that point, we knew it was Zoroark because he led Malamar Toxtricity, right? But we knew it was Zoroark because I went for Sucker Punch to that slot because I didn't want to get baited. I think he could have done some real damage if it was actually Malamar. He went for Superpower to my Gambit. But because with leading that means that I can't Terra Flying with the Overdrive. But it was actually, I made the decision that it was going to be Zoroark, and it actually was, right? So turn 2, went for Sucker Punch, knocked out Hisuian Zoroark because he went for Icy Wind. I'm guessing because he just tried to go for another Overdrive. He probably went for another Overdrive with Toxtricity, but Ninetales was able to knock out the Toxtricity with another Blizzard before it was able to move. That Mon is actually not that frail, and plus taking a Life Orb chip from turn 1 plus the first Blizzard, it was already in range of another Blizzard, and we was able to knock out both of those Mons. And then he had Noivern plus Malamar in the back. He had Incineroar plus Malamar in the back, right? It gave my King Gambit a Defiant boost, and I went ahead and Terra Flying on the King Gambit. He faked out into it, and he set up Trick Room, but I had switched into Dozo on the Ninetales slot, and he set up Trick Room. Before I switched in the Tatsugiri, I went for a Kowtow Cleave into the Malamar, which tear it into fire, and then I went for a Wave Crash. Removed the Malamar, and then went for Topsy Turvy into my Dozo, but at that point, I had no stats, and then Dozo was just able to beat the Incineroar 1v1. So that's how game 2 ended. Game 3, he didn't want to play the same way, so he let in the Noivern plus Toxtricity, but I covered for a Tailwind mode by leading Ninetales again, and also King Gambit. So turn 1, he went for Tailwind plus Overdrive, right? But I simply went, and he's Terra Steeled on the Noivern, right? But I simply went for Blizzard plus Sucker Punch into Toxtricity. Toxtricity got the Overdrive off, broke the Sash on the Ninetales, but the Sucker Punch plus Blizzard was enough to KO Toxtricity. And Tailwind was up. He brought in the Malamar on top of Tailwind. I think he left the Hisuian Zoroark in the back this game, right? He left it at home because he brought the Incineroar. He brought out the Malamar while I had the Ninetales and King Gambit out. And I felt like I was in a really good position. I switched in Dozo again. He went for Draco Meteor into the King Gambit slot, which I was still... Did I Terra Flying? Did I Terra... No, he went for Super Fang plus... He went for Super Fang plus Superpower into the King Gambit slot. But I Terra Flying, so I was able to eat that, and I was able to one-shot the Noivern back with a Kowtow Cleave, and I got Dozo in for free, and then he brought in Incineroar. I protected Dozo. He faked out into the Incineroar, went for knockoff, knocked out my Dozo, but I brought back in the Ninetales, and at this point, he didn't have any Terra left. I just went for Blizzard plus Wave Crash into the Malamar before I was able to go for Topsy Turvy. We removed it, and then it was just Incineroar knocked out my Ninetales with a Flare Blitz, and then from that point, it was a very easy game because Tailwind expired. It was just Incineroar versus Dozo and Tatsugiri again, and was able to win that game. So that's pretty much how that series went. Like I said, this team was super fun to go against. I know it's kind of hard to imagine, but I just want to talk about how the team played and, you know, some of the stuff that I ran into while playing this team. But this team was very fun to play against. Like I said, he did beat me game 1. He did catch me off guard with the Hisuian Zoroark, and like me having me think it was a team sheet error, me being wrong. Like I was kind of just in my head, and he was able to win it. But just pressuring the Hisuian Zoroark with the King Gambit, and he's knowing that the Hisuian Zoroark actually wasn't that good into Gambit, kind of made him drop it turn 2. I mean game 3. But game 2, I feel like I played it perfect. I feel like game 3, the Noivern, I kind of was expecting Tailwind. So with me expecting Tailwind, he didn't really have a lot of opportunity. Plus Gambit already being slow. He only used Tailwind to outspeed the Ninetales, but with me switching the Ninetales out, he didn't have a lot of opportunity to take advantage of his own Tailwind, right? So he never even clicked Trick Room with this team, and he never brought the Ursaluna. So I don't know if the Ursaluna would have made a difference due to my Dozo being so bulky and it not being flame orb plus guts. So it's actually not as powerful as you think because it's just a bulletproof ability. But this team was fun to play against. So props to my opponent for making top 4 with such a cool team in this tournament. And like I said, this tournament was best of 1 open team sheet in Swiss. So if you don't know what he's doing with the Hisuian Zoroark, he can easily take a quick game off you, with you not expecting it. So I can see how this team can be strong in this type of format that we played in. But this was a super fun tournament, and that was it for that match. The last match was actually the finals against Renny again, and I want to go ahead and show Rennie's team before we get into breaking down the finals. So it was a best of 3 set, and I won't spoil it until we get to the actual matches. But his team was very strong. As you see, the Murkrow has Quash, has Foul Play, Tailwind, and Haze with Terra Ghost. The Sneasler, Psychic Seed, Indeedee stuff. The Focus Sash on Indeedee is pretty strong, especially at denying Trick Room with Imprison. The Terra Blast, Terra Grass, I'm not sure what that's really there to cover for, but it didn't really come up. And he has the Dozo Tatsugiri stuff. So this is a really cool team. The Ursaluna fits very well with the Murkrow. It's actually super annoying to deal with because you can just quash and just Blood Moon something and just knock it out, right? And if your opponent doesn't have good counterplay into it, it's just a free KO in a lot of different circumstances, right? And then you can just tell when Hyper Voice, and then just quash again. You can Haze to get rid of boost and stuff like that. It's just a super annoying duo. And I think this might be, outside of like Choice Space Go Dingo, it's one of the best ways to run Murkrow. I don't think Murkrow's that good in this format because you much rather usually always prefer Whimsicott. But in the case against my team specifically, this Murkrow is actually really good into it. So this is like a pretty standard 2-2-2 team. Murkrow, Blood Moon, Sneasler, Indeedee, Dozo, Tatsugiri, right? But he was able to make it to finals. It was really funny because the only match that I lost in the tournament was to him in Swiss. And he also went 8-1. So the only match that he lost in the tournament was to me in finals. So I think that was very funny that me and him were just, you know, kind of cleaning through this tournament with these two teams. So it was a very fun finals, and we're gonna go ahead and review it. And like I said, I did not commentate over it, so I'm gonna be, you know, pausing it here and there to let you guys know what was going through my mind, let you know what I think the opponent might be thinking, or what he might have been thinking when he made that play, and how the set went. But that's gonna be it, and let's go ahead and get into those battles. Holy smokes, all right, we are back. So we have our matches right here. This video is actually going to be the first 2 games, and then we have one with game 3. So we're going to see how this went. I'm going to pause here and there so you guys can, we can go over it and you can understand, you know, pretty much the mindset of how this match went. So this is a different type of content for me. I usually don't commentate over my own gameplay, but we're going to do it today. All right, so this is game 1 against Renny. And here, this is where I was pretty much, you know, prepared for the Ursaluna Murkrow lead, because I know that he's going to lead it, right? And I had a really solid game plan into it. I was thinking about my the pathway that I wanted to lead into it. And I'm also planning for the Dondozo in the back. So what do we go with here? All right, we got Gambit, Ninetales, and this is smart for me because this is gonna cover for Ursaluna not being able to burst down my my lead with something like, you know, Mouse Hole 8, like Tailwind plus, or just Quash Blood Moon. I think when he beat me, he quashed Blood Moon the Annihilate game 1, and I was not prepared for that when we were playing each other in Swiss. So Annihilate makes it so that even if he sets up Tailwind, even if he can't quash the King Gambit. If he quashes Ninetales, we survive with Sash. If he goes for Hyper Voice, we survive on both, right? And I was also trying to cover for the Dozo in the back, right? I ended up just playing to my Tatsugiri and Dozo, and I planned on knocking out his Ursaluna and conserving my Ninetales to fight the Dozo in the back after my Dozo chipped it down, right? And that was pretty much my game plan in order to win. All right, so there's the Murkrow Ursaluna lead. This is what he led in the Swiss rounds as well. Yeah, so Snow activates. All right, so when I played this match similarly, I led the Annihilate and the Mousehold, and he immediately quashed Normal Terra Blood Moon, the Annihilate, and I pop bombed into the Murkrow, which he knocked it out, and then he brought in his Dozo, and I brought in my Dozo, and his Dozo was able to beat my Dozo. And he set an Ursaluna in the back. So it was a close set. It was a close match, but he was able to win it. And you see here my idea is to try to knock out Murkrow plus Ursaluna in one turn. So that's why I went for the Stellar Terror. And doing this makes it so that Ursaluna and Blood Moon are both gone. I mean, Ursaluna and Murkrow are both gone. And I still have Sash, Ninetales plus King Gambit in the back in case my Dozo loses to his Dozo. That was the idea behind this lead. Nice, so let me move this down so you guys can see. And Murkrow actually survives, which is super annoying because I did want it to go down, so he's forced to bring out his Dozo. But it didn't go down, which was super annoying. And I was actually surprised that it was able to take a Telestera Blizzard. And this is also prompt me to make a different play the next game, knowing that Murkrow was able to survive that Blizzard. Now, it might have been a roll that it survived, and I just low rolled it. But I did think that it would put the KO. But to my surprise, he brings out Sneasler, and I'm like, wait. He didn't bring his Dozo. So that means it's Indeedee in the back. So this completely changes everything, right? So here I'm considering protecting Ninetales. I was also thinking about just immediately switching into Dozo, but I ended up not going for it. He immediately switched out into the Indeedee, which was, like I said, it's annoying for me because Murkrow's still in the back, and I do have my Dozo, so at any point he's still able to haze me, and that's why Murkrow even surviving with that little bit of HP is kind of annoying, right? But with Indeedee Sneasler on the field, it kind of gets to a point where it honestly doesn't even matter if he hazes me, because Dozo's still able to do damage to these two even without his boost, right? And Murkrow's currently not on the field, so he's going to have to take a turn to switch it in because the Indeedee is Sash. But we do bring it down to Sash. This makes it so that when Dozo comes in, I'm just able to click Earthquake. That's why I didn't mind sacking the Ninetales here, because I didn't want to switch Dozo into a Dire Claw and get put to sleep, right? So now we only have to get around one Dire Claw roll. We get a free Earthquake. He could like protect Sneasler and switch out into the Murkrow on the Indeedee slot, which I don't believe he does that. And I go ahead and switch in Indeedee. I mean, I think I covered. Yes, I covered for the Murkrow coming in. I covered for Sneasler protecting and then Murkrow coming in. So this is the play that I went for, because you could protect Sneasler, switch out Indeedee. I mean, switch out Indeedee into Murkrow, and it's open team sheet, so he knows I have Earthquake, right? Earthquake looks so solid here. You KO the Indeedee, you potentially KO the Sneasler, or you chip it down, and you make it so it's harder for your opponent to win, right? So that's what I was covering for. But to my surprise, he did not switch the Indeedee out, and he just went for a Dire Claw. He gets the paralysis roll, which is honestly better than him getting a sleep roll, right? and we just have to play around the paralysis. Now this is super annoying to me because I'm like, I could have just clicked Earthquake, right? And I think the game immediately over. And I'm very surprised that he didn't make the play to protect Sneasler and switch in Murkrow, because Dozo was in a very threatening position, because Dozo kind of just wipes Indeedee Sneasler with this team. So there's the Murkrow. And if I remember correctly, I believe he actually doesn't immediately go for Haze. Or was that another game? Yeah. So this play is crazy to me because he protects Sneasler this turn and foul plays me. And I'm like, I could just win the game if I just targeted the Murkrow. It's insane the plays he's making the last 2 turns, right? But I'm like, okay, maybe he's just hard reading. This isn't finals, but I think it's very risky the way he's playing, right? So I go for Earthquake again. Since Caesar can't protect his turn, I'm expecting a Haze here. And there's the Haze. But at this point, we just need to play around, because I still have Gambit, right? Alright, we just need to play around the paralysis, and we need to get the damage off on Sneasler here, because then we get it in Sucker Punch range from Gambit. Once the terrain expires. Beautiful damage. That would have just 1-hit KO Sneasler if we had our boost, so that's good to know. And he really he risked the game when he didn't protect Sneasler the turn that Indeedee didn't switch out, because the game would just been immediately over. Here, because I have Tessagiri, I think it was safe to go for this, but I honestly think I should have protected here, because the terrain is still up and we can't Sucker Punch, right? But Rocky Helmet does knock out the Murkrow. Oh, I also covered it because knowing that Murkrow didn't have anything else to go for but foul play, I knew that if he knocked out my Dozo with Sneasler, that Rocky Helmet would knock out Murkrow. And this gets it to a 2v1 to where Caesar can't target both slots. So it was a guaranteed win, and the terrain expired, so we could just Sucker Punch here. Yeah, so I was pretty much aware of this. So this is just a good position, and honestly, my opponent made this game a lot easier. I had game plans into Dozo in the end game. Had he had it, I would have conserved the Ninetales and brought out my Dozo and conserved my King Gambit, and then just played the end game with Tessagiri, Gambit, and Ninetales in order to beat his Dozo and his Tessagiri, right? So that was pretty much my game plan. But him not bringing Tessagiri made it a lot easier for me. So that was a really cool game. I felt very confident about that. Him not bringing Dozo, I knew for a fact that this next game is gonna bring Dozo, because I could tell that he saw how bad his Sneasler and Indeedee was into my Dozo. And honestly, my opponent made a call that because how our switch set went, how bad my Dozo was into his Dozo, he felt like I wasn't gonna bring my Dozo, and he did feel like the rest of my team has a good matchup into his Dozo, so that's why he dropped his Dozo. And he thinks that if I drop my Dozo, his Sneasler plus Indeedee is really good into my back mons, because it pressures pretty much my entire team if he has Tailwind up. If Ursaluna breaks Ninetales Sash, the Sneasler's like pressuring the Gambit, it's pressuring the Ninetales. The Indeedee is pressuring the Annihilate, and the Sneasler's pressuring the Mousehole, right? So I can understand why he would have dropped Dozo game 1. But I was never considering dropping my Dozo because I knew how good it was. And at this point, I already had my game plan set. Even if he brought his Dozo, I was always going to go with the Ninetales plus the King Gambit lead, because like I told you, what I learned from Wolfie is the total pathing is when you're prepping for your finals match, you go with the same leads every time and then you adjust based on your opponent, right? So my game plan going into the finals was always lead Ninetales plus King Gambit, right? At that point, I was always going to do that and bring my Dozo in the back. And my game plan, like I said, was to knock out his first 2 mons and play a centric game pretty much in the end game again with my Dozo versus his Dozo. His Dozo wins, but then I win with my Tessagiri, King Gambit, and my Ninetales, which still on Sash, so I can protect it for 1 turn because I know he's going to target it, and then get a freeze dry off into the Dozo and then try to win from there, right? But as we're gonna see in this game, that game plan actually was not a great game plan in order for me to win, because I did do it, but his Dozo. We'll get to that point, so I'll let it go ahead and get to that point. But my game plan actually was going the way I wanted it to, but it ended up not working because of a lot of things that I didn't account for with his Dozo. Right, so we're going with the Ninetales this time, and this time I'm determined to get that KO on that Murkrow. He terraces Ursaluna, which makes sense. And he's never going to click Earth Power here into the Gambit because it's just too risky with me being Terra Flying. And breaking the Sash on Ninetales, getting damage on King Gambit is too valuable. But King Gambit is so good here. There's a Hyper Voice, breaks the Sash on Ninetales. Which honestly, if he didn't break the Sash on Ninetales, I think it was kind of like just game over. Because the Sash on Ninetales is so pivotal in this finals. But yeah, we went for the Moonblast. We know that one hit KOs Murkrow guaranteed. There's no chance of surviving that. Just like it survived the Blizzard. But the Blizzard is spread damage, so that's why I was able to survive. And then we low kick here just to get the damage off. But we get a crit. So this is even better for me because I still get the double KO turn 1. And now we're playing a 4 against 2, right? With my Dozo in the back, and I still have Ninetales and Gambit. So this is the plan that I was playing for, and we just outlast his Dozo just by having too many mons and being able to consistently deal damage. And I just needed for my Dozo to chip his Dozo down into range, right? And there's this test to get it. So like I said, if it was indeed Sleezer in the back, we just immediately switch into my Dozo. But I knew that he was going to bring his Dozo because of how bad Sneasel and Didi was into my Dozo. It didn't feel good because if Murkrow had went down, he had no haze, then the game was just immediately over, right? All right, so I believe this is where I think I switch in Dozo and I attack with Gambit. Because Ninetales is important. We have to conserve it, right? Yeah, this is smart. This switches out Gambit. This conserve because he's gonna go for Earthquake here, right? It's super effective in the Gambit. It knocks out Ninetales, right? You have no option but to really go for that. My Dozo being out really doesn't matter. Because it's unaware anyway. So even if I had to boost, and this play right here allows me to realize something that I'm thinking: if I don't win this game, that I have a game plan for game 3. And me switching in Dozo right there and seeing him, you know, targeted and realizing that my Dozo has unaware, so it doesn't matter if I switch to Tetsukiri or not. Something goes off in my head, right? And I'm like, wait, if I don't win this game right here, I may need to deviate, right? And this is going to show you, this is pretty much a similar thing to what happened in the Swiss rounds where my Dozo lost to his Dozo because his Dozo has leftovers, right? And our Dozo with the safety goggles is really good into Amogus with Steel Terra. But it's not that good into other Dozo. But this taught me a game plan in order to beat other Dozo by losing this game, right? And you're like, wow, you're up 4-2. How in the world did you lose this game, right? You had your game plan. You still have your Ninetale. You still have your King Gambit. You have your Tatsugiri that can click infinite Draco Meteors into his Dozo, right? So I don't know if we want to speed this up. We make it speed it up. Yeah, because this match is going to go on for like another 20 minutes. But it's pretty much Dozo. We're just ordering up. He protects every other turn. I get a crit there, but it really doesn't matter. I wish the crit did more damage. But his Dozo is like super bulky. So we're going to fast forward it here. We go for a couple turns. He protects every other turn. He gets some health back, right? My Dozo continues to get weaker. All right, we'll stop it right here. Yeah, and I was hoping that my Dozo can get his Dozo to around maybe like 50%. All right, so we have one more turn. And you see he's winning the war of attrition because he has the leftovers, right? But like I said, his Dozo, it loses to more of the meta than our Dozo because we have the Steel Terror, right? This Dozo loses to the Indeedee Sneasler because you can't Terror because you Terror Grass. And also Amoonguss can Clear Smog you, right? And then Amoonguss Incineroar can intimidate you down. And it's just not good. But our Dozo is actually able to beat the Amoonguss Incineroar core because our Order Up gives us an attack boost and we can't be put to sleep. So you can't easily like just cycle around with us, right? And you can't Clear Smog us because we're Terror Steel, right? So our only bad matchup is against opposing Dozo with leftovers. But this game taught me something valuable in a way that we're able to beat this team. Or to beat any Dozo team with leftovers. And I figured that out in game 3. Alright, so here's the gist, right? Dozo's at about 70%. I'm thinking, okay, I did not click my Terra Stellar Ice type attack, so I still have Terra Stellar Freeze Dry, right, which is super effective to the Dozo, right? I also have Draco Meteor with Tessagiri. So I need to get. I know that it's not enough to KO Dozo from that range, so I need to play safe, right? And it looks like I'm going for this play. I think at this point I should have protected Ninetales. Oh, but he does go for protect, right? So I think he bails me out here because I think I should have always protected Ninetales and Draco with Tessagiri because it's very unlikely that he clicks Order Up into Tessagiri. It's very likely that he wants to click Earthquake to get the KO on Ninetales and chip down Tessagiri, right? And I think I realized this because he protected. I was like, oh, wait, this is actually a bad play, right? Yeah, 4 turns of Snow. Snow really doesn't matter because Ninetales is going to go down to Earthquake regardless. And I check my Dozo speed. And I check my Tessagiri speed. And I do the math. My Dozo was outspeeding his Dozo, which was like my Dozo's base speed is 150. And I just wanted to make sure that my Tessagiri outsped his Dozo, right? Right. Because my Dozo outsped his Dozo and my Tessagiri was 147, my Dozo hits 150. My Tessagiri is only 3 points slower than my Dozo with the Tessagiri inside of it. So I made a pretty good estimate that his Dozo would be slower than my Tessagiri. So this is why I was able to make this play. Because if his Dozo was faster than my Tessagiri, then this play doesn't make sense, right? So he's going to protect here. But I can't do this play again because now Tessagiri's in range. But he doesn't even protect her to get the extra leftovers recovery. So Freeze Dry, I'm thinking, okay, this is game. And I'm like, wait, that doesn't do enough. And Dozo survives with just a smidgen. And this is terrible because now he gets a double KO. Now, I didn't account for the Dozo being able to take the Freeze Dry plus the Draco Meteor. And I thought that this game was in the bag, right? But his Dozo was a lot more specially defensive than I accounted for. And unless we like really high rolled it, or because I don't know if we low rolled him on the Freeze Dry, this game was pretty much in his favor. And my game plan actually wasn't that I came into the finals with wasn't the best game plan to beat this Dozo, right? And I realized that because Ninetales is gonna need more than one Freeze Dry to get off in order to beat the Dozo. So at this point, I'm like, this is not a good game plan into his team. And based off how bad Sleazer and Indeedee was to my Dozo, I don't think that he's going to bring Indeedee Sleazer again, right? I think he's going to go for what he just won with. Lead with Murkrow plus the Ursaluna and have his Dozo on the back. And at this point with, it getting recovery, I would have to get a critical hit Sucker Punch. I knew he was going to protect her, so I just went for low kick. It didn't matter. I think I'm in range of an Earthquake regardless. Because it's single target and Dozo's at +2. So I go for Sucker Punch here. I need to get a crit in order to win, right? Sucker Punch, Dozo's at +2 defense. Sucker Punch is not boosted by Black Glasses. It's not going to do enough damage, even though Dozo's still in red. And he honestly could have just protected there and whiffed it, right? But protect is risky in case I just low kick. Yeah, and he has body press. Sorry, not even Earthquake. So it was a guaranteed win because like I said, his Dozo is the physical defense. It's the physical defense droopy Tessagiri. So he gets a defense boost whenever he clicks Order Up, right? So that's why I said that his Dozo kind of loses to like the Among Us Incineroar stuff, because it can like cycle. Now you can body press the Incineroar, but if it Terra Ghost and Among Us just pollen puffs it and puts you to sleep, it just makes it hard for that Dozo to break. And that's the type of Dozo that I use in restricted formats because it's very good into the physical restricteds. But I did see, and I had to go Terra Grass because otherwise it struggles into Miraidon. But I did see that it struggled against Incineroar Among Us, which is common in this format. That's why Artidozo is a lot better into that matchup. So that's gonna end, that match. Um, it was a really fun first two matches. But at this point, I knew exactly what I needed to do, and we were getting into the match, but he had like some technical issues, so it took us a little bit in order for us to get started. We'll just keep playing it. I'll just keep talking through it. But the next match started, but I pretty much had my game plan set on how I wanted to play him in the finals. But he also, because of the technical difficulties, I believe that my opponent had a lot more time. I think he had a lot more time in order to create a game plan for me as well. He was trying to get his stuff going. I believe we got into the match and then it just quit. Let's see. No, we didn't even get into the match because I think he got disconnected, right? If I'm not mistaken. Oh no, I was still messaging him. Yeah, this is where he was saying that he couldn't find me and stuff like that. So we'll pause the video here, and then we're gonna get into game 3. All right, so we are back with game 3. And this is the one where Ninetales earned my heart. Because, oh my God, we're just going to have to watch, right? So this is game 3 of the finals. This is a really intense set. I felt like I had a commanding game 1 win. I felt like my game plan coming into the tournament, coming into the finals was solid, but it turned out not working because of Dozo surviving on very low HP, probably about maybe 2-3% of his health. So the game plan, like let's say Ninetales high rolls it, right? We knock out the Dozo. It's a Ninetales and Tatsugiri and my Gambit versus his Tatsugiri, right? We automatically win that, right? And here's where I'm like, do I just go with this game plan again? This is what I did in my total pathing up into the finals. This is what I need to do in order to win this. I low rolled him. Maybe I'll get a high roll. I think my game plan was solid. Let's just go with it again, right? But I'm like, I just don't like the way it feels that if I low roll him again, I just kind of automatically lose, right? Because Ninetales is always going to get his sash broken turn 1 by the Ursaluna, right? So I'm thinking, what happened last game that I felt good about, right? And I was remembering when I switched in Dozo and it was next to my Ninetales and I did not have Tatsugiri. So I'm like, wait, I don't need Dozo to combine with Tatsugiri because I get the same benefits against his Dozo. And it'd be better if I had another Mon next to Dozo that's able to deal some extra damage so that when Ninetales comes back in, I can click Freeze Dry and get the KO. And I'm thinking, is Annihilate that Mon? And I was like, no. Annihilate gets into a bad matchup. If I run into Indeedee, I can't protect it, right? To the Sneasler. And he does lead Indeedee Sneasler. So I'm like, wait. Let me bring the mouse hole, right? Because I can protect, I can redirect some attack. I can redirect like body press away from King Gambit for 1 turn, and I can also pop bomb the Dozo. I outspeed it, and I'm able to deal like maybe 30% to Dozo, which is that extra percent that I need for Ninetales to pick up the KO, right? So this is why we dropped Tatsugiri and went with the solo Dozo, and I kind of feel like this is the plan against opposing Dozo, right? And this game went even better than I could have even imagined it, right? But he went with the Indeedee Sneasler. This is the first time that he's led something other than the Ursaluna plus the Murkrow. And I think because he lost both of them turn 1, he didn't want to play that again. So he went with a different mode. So this was his adjustment. And I think that the delays between game 2 and 3 due to the technical difficulties allowed him to come up with this a better game plan into my King Gambit and my Ninetales, which this is a better game plan because now you see it's forcing me to protect my Ninetales turn 1 and tear my King Gambit. But I have a game plan here because I know that my Gambit can survive Expanding Force plus close combat because I have the Assault Vest and Terra Flying. So even if he had doubled into that slot, which he wanted to get rid of the Ninetales, right? This works out better for me. And I love when they close combat into my King Gambit and I go for Terra Flying because usually a guaranteed KO or Sneasel. But this worked out even better because his Sneasel's not that, it doesn't have any physical defense. And we just get a one-hit KO in exchange for some chip onto my King Gambit. And I'm like, this turn is going even better than I thought. And there's the Dozo. So this game, my opponent made another adjustment. I didn't make any adjustments games 1 and 2. I didn't make an adjustment to this game, but he doesn't know that yet. So he probably is under the impression I still have my Dozo Tessagiri in the back, right? But he brings his Dozo and his Sneasel and DD. With the play that I made, it actually, on paper, it looks good into Gambit plus Ninetales. But because the play that I made, it actually was very bad into it because I just got a free KO on the Sneasel because he didn't protect it. And now I have his Dozo out. I think he wants to keep his Ndidi on the field for a turn. So I don't switch it to my Dozo yet, right? And this turn goes amazing for me because he agrees not switching it in. Yeah, so he just wants to get an Expanding Force off. He wants to break the sash on the Ninetales, which if this play doesn't happen right here, he does break the sash on my Ninetales, right? But Ninetales comes through in the clutch for us, right? And gets a freeze. So Expanding Force was solid here because it breaks the sash. It chips King Gambit down more. But we get the freeze. It stays frozen. And now we get the free KO on the Ndidi. And I'm like, Ninetales, you are so clutch. I can feel it. I can see it. Like his Dozo has to come. His Tessagiri has to come out. My Ninetales still has sash. So I'm able to get at least 2 freeze dries guaranteed into the Dozo. And then I still have my Pop Bomb in the back plus my Dozo, right? And at this point, I'm feeling great because I don't have my Tessagiri Dozo. So I'm always going to have a partner next to my Dozo in order to deal damage into the Dondozo, right? With 2 different Mons. And I'm not stuck losing an automatic 1v1 against our Dozos with both Tessagiris on the field, right? So now I'm like, okay, he can't one-hit kill my King Gambit because he's Order Up, Earthquake plus Body Press, right? And Protect. So he doesn't have Wave Crash. So he can't one-shot my Gambit from the range that I'm at. So honestly, Protect is safe here. But I switch in Dozo because I want to conserve my King Gambit. Because honestly, you should just click Order Up into King Gambit, right? You should read a Protect. But I honestly think he's going to Body Press the Ninetales here, right? Because Ninetales is so threatening with the freeze dries. Yep, he goes for the Body Press to the Ninetales. We get our Dozo in for free. So at this point, I'm like, okay, I get a freeze dry off here, and I get an Order Up off. My Dozo's honestly just here to just be annoying to his Dozo, just chip it down. Just giving the extra chip to my opponent. Honestly, maybe Tessagiri could have been good here too, but Tessagiri honestly goes down faster than Dozo, right? So that's why I went with the Dozo instead. And we get the freeze with freeze dry. And at this point, I'm like, yo, I think this game might be over. He stays frozen. This means my Ninetales gets an extra turn to get another freeze dry off because the sash isn't broken yet. So at this point, he should just go for Protects, try to unthaw. But the longer we get, the more time we get. So honestly, I think at this point, while he's frozen, I just want to save my Ninetales sash because it's so pivotal for this game. And we just go ahead and double switch and get in get in Mousehold plus King Gambit. Oh no, I keep the Ninetales in. Sorry, I switched Dozo out because the reason I switched Dozo out is because while he's frozen, I could take advantage of the frozen and get like massive damage off into him. And Pop Bomb is doing more damage to Dozo than Order Up is doing, right? And I can just save my Dozo for in-game against his Tessagiri. Yep, so it's smart. I switched Dozo out because now I got the pressure on. And I can also follow me away with like Body Press too, in case he was coming out with that. But at this point, he's probably just going to click Earthquake and Protect if he thaws out, right? But this is the idea of bringing Mousehold. You see, this is pivotal damage here because this just puts it in range of freeze dry, right? And because he's frozen, nothing my opponent can do. But the game plan that I had was even if I didn't get the freezes, with Mousehold, I was able to chip the Dozo down and then beat his Tessagiri with like my King Gambit and my Dozo, right? So that was always the game plan. And Ninetales just completely secured this game, right? And at this point, with all 4 of my Mons, it's really just nothing my opponent can do into this team. Now he goes for the Terra on Tatsugiri. I believe it's Terra Steel, which is smart because it's going to resist both Pop Bomb. It's going to resist Freeze Dry. It's going to resist Moonblast. It's pretty much resisting everything that I have except for like King Gambit's Low Kick and Kowtow Cleave. And my Dozo's Earthquake and Wave Crash, right? Critical hit on the Ninetales. A little bit annoying. And he gets the accuracy drop. I'm like, okay, that's fair. But we go for Pop Bomb here, right? And this is something that I did not know. Pop Bomb is going to pick up a KO on Tatsugiri while it's still Terra, even though it's resisted. Like, because it's Choice Scarf, right? It doesn't have any bulk on it. And now going forward, I know that Mousehole is actually, because most Tatsugiris are running Terra Steel on Dozo teams if they're Choice Scarf. Mousehole is the perfect mon to bring to this matchup, and I feel like it just completely flipped the matchup on its head. And the freeze just helped, push the match forward quicker because he wasn't able to protect his Dozo. But I honestly believe that with Mousehole, the Mousehole adjustment, that I was always going to be able to win that game because I was not stuck out on the field and I was always able to switch. I have King Gambit that's Terra Flying, so I could switch it to Earthquakes and just kind of stall out the Dozo and just deal consistent chip damage to him with all 4 of my mons, keeping the Ninetales safe with Protects and the Sash. And from that point, I felt like we would definitely be able to, win that game. So that's pretty much going to wrap up. I don't believe there was anything else. We were just sitting here. I was in the chat pretty much, talking to the guy Teo Pokemon, who I guys showed you his Twitch channel, so go ahead and follow him. But this was a really fun tournament. I had a lot of fun with it. I'm glad I was able to win it. The finals was definitely an intense. This just shows me that even in best of threes in real life, that I am able to adjust, and that this taught me a lot of things. That even though you have a strict game plan, if you see that it doesn't go well, you can adjust from there. And I did not adjust my leads. I led King Gambit plus Ninetales every single match. I didn't even bring Annihilate. I wasn't considering it at all due to him having Tailwind plus. Usually I would bring Annihilate to like a Dozo match, but because he had Tailwind and the Murkrow plus like Quash, I was never able to get a final Gambit off. And when he beat me in Swiss rounds, it felt so bad that I just didn't go to it again, right? I stuck to my game plan and was able to win that game. And like I said, I did get the freezes in game 3, but because I brought the Mousehole adjustment, I felt like I was always in a good position because we outspeed the Dozo, and you see we're doing about 40% with Pop Bomb, and Dozo, unless it body presses to us, it's not going to one-shot us. And if it toes body press, that means that it's a turn that's not targeting Ninetales, which means more freeze drives, right? And that's kind of like my idea behind bringing those two, because they're so good into Dozo. He saved his Terra. He could have terrored in the grass, but it honestly wouldn't have done anything different because Freeze Dry is still super effective. That's why Tatsugiri had the Terra at the end game, but then Mousehole still was able to one-shot Tatsugiri with a Pop Bomb. So it was a very fun set. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you like this type of content, go ahead and subscribe for me. Turn on those post notifications. Let me know in the comment below. What do you guys think about this team? And what do you think about going forward about, me showing more Limitless Tour content? And if you want me to record more of these tournaments, the gameplay and stuff like that. If you guys like that, let me know in the comment below. But that's going to be it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll catch you in the next one. Stay tuned. More new videos soon. Deuces.